Hello, everybody, and welcome to Youth Pledge for Employers virtual careers event. We are ever so pleased today to be welcoming Phil Pethybridge from Neon Street to talk to us. Right, okay, Phil, thanks so much for coming along.
That's quite all right. Well, thank you for having me. So
Oh,
I wanted to talk
pleasure.
about I'll talk about the company first of all and what we do, and then we'll sort of go into some examples of what we do. Then I'll talk about the roles and who's involved, if that's okay.
Sounds brilliant.
Okay, so most people would have not really heard of Neon Streets, but if you've been to a concert or you've been to a motor racing event or a comedy show, it may be that one of our team has sold you some merchandise, or you might have a T-shirt in your wardrobe, which we produced. It might be that the band who went to the show went in one of our vehicles. It might be that you went to a festival and the musicians you saw were booked and organised by us. We do all the things that you don't see at events. So our brand is known in music and motorsport and festivals and comedy markets, but not to the general public. And that's fine. We began in 2011. There's only a team of four of us. We're pretty small. So we have two full-time staff and two part-time staff. We're based in Needham Market in Suffolk, and we do a variety of projects in the UK and Europe, and then sometimes in other parts of the world. As I said, our main markets are music, motorsport, festivals, and comedy. And we help in all sorts of areas. So we help choose musicians for festivals. So we do some of the programming, which means listening to lots of musicians and arranging for them to come join us. We provide transport. We provide online shops for musicians. So we look after 34 online stores at the moment. That includes some of the design work, the marketing, and then also the pick, packing, and shipping. So the stuff gets to the customer. We event plan as well. So we're involved in the design and build of stages at music festivals. And then we design and produce merchandise. Next slide, please.
Right, sure thing.
I must remember to say next slide, please. There we go. That's the kind of summary of what we do. But essentially, it does seem like we do quite a range of things, but they all kind of work together because we program content for festivals. Note that content needs to get there so we can help them with transport. And when you're at the event, they may want to sell some of their merchandise, so we help with that. And when the event is finished, they want to sell online, so we help with that. And then things like festivals and tours are seasonal, so therefore they'll come back again and again, and therefore we're involved in the event planning, which involves more merchandise. So we only have a core customer base of about 100 customers, which is quite small really for an organization, but each customer we look after 4 or 5 different things. Next slide, please. One of our biggest projects is in motorsport, and that involves the British GT Championships, which is one of the biggest UK motorsport series. It's been going for over 25 years, and it's manufacturers like McLaren and Lamborghini and Porsche and Aston Martin and Mercedes. Next slide, please. And so we approached them, and we provide a merchandise range. So we source and design products, and we sell them online. Next slide, please. And then we also look after the shops. We provide a mailing list, click and collect, and we can ship these across the world. Next slide, please. And then we go to the events, and that's the great part about what we do, is that we spend quite a lot of time planning and prepping, and then we actually go to these events and we work, and essentially we are paid to go to events for projects we enjoy. And we do get to see some of the racing, but we also get to engage with different customers and offer them stuff and really make it part of the experience. Because when you go to an event, it's not just about seeing the content, it's about the food, the drink, things like merchandise, other activity, fan zones, and we contribute to that. Next slide. But as part of that as well, we've diversified in things like vehicle hire. So we have a fleet of 9-seater tour vans, which we rent to musicians and comedians and motorsport series, so they can take their talent across Europe. And we do this from London, and we also do this from Suffolk. And this also supports our merchandise work because you can fit 9 people plus all the kit in a vehicle and head off to wherever you need to go. Next slide. Some of the bigger events that we also work on include music festivals. So Cambridge Folk Festival is one of the biggest and most famous folk festivals in the world, and we've been working with them for over 10 years. And there we provide some of the programming. So we choose some of the artists who play, but our remit is we try and find the talent which you haven't heard of yet. So we find musicians who you haven't even heard on the radio, and they're only just starting to do their performances. But the reason we're there is that eventually these artists will become bigger and more well known, and they'll come and play main stages. But it's important that a festival supports them at the early parts of their career. And it's my job to find those artists who we think are going to do well and support them with slots and content and give them that hand-holding experience. And we've done things with Passenger and Nick Mulvey and the Staves and many others at Cambridge Folk. And we do this at other festivals as well, Mumford and Sons and Ed Sheeran and Newton Faulkner, Leanne La Havas, Liza Doolittle, and that's one of our key parts. We also run the stage, so we do the build, we do the set design, we do the stage management, look after the artists, take it all down, deal with any unruly customers. And then at Cambridge Folk, we also provide the merchandise. So we design it, we produce it, we sell it, we build a shop, and make it all part of the experience. Next slide. But in the complete opposite to Cambridge Folk, we also deal with very new festivals. So last year was a new project called Good Vibration Society, which is a festival of life. So it's food, wellness, music, workshops. And we're involved in quite a range of things there. So we did the stage management, some of the programming. We're involved in the ticketing, the accreditation, the info point, the merchandise, artist liaison, transport. But then again, it was a very small crew. So whatever size event you're doing, you essentially contribute your skills to match the event. This is a 1,500 capacity event, but the crew was very small, unfortunately, because of the pandemic was occurring at the time. So we took on multiple roles, but because we had those skills, it meant the event could take place. But it also gave the opportunity for those who have never actually been involved in a festival before to get their hands dirty as a volunteer and really get to the nitty gritty. And there were several people who really shone that weekend, and they're going to come join us next year and be involved too. Next slide, please. I should add.
I'm just hitting the button. There we go.
So to give you an idea of our day, no day is the same. I think that's the case for the majority of jobs, especially in the event sector. So we kick off by dealing with customer queries. So all these shops we look after, people might have questions about shipping, or they've ordered the wrong thing, or they put the wrong address in. And then we ship all those orders out. We have vehicles we have to prepare for hire. We might go and set up an event. So we might nip to Poland, or we might nip to Bedford. It just depends on what's going on. So there's a lot of travel involved, but that's fine. You know, it could be 20 minutes, it could be 20 hours. You've just got to get to the event in the best way possible to give yourself the best opportunity to do what you need to do. A lot of my day is spent paying bills. My colleagues design a lot of products, and we also fix other people's problems. We seem to have a reputation for being able to do stuff really well, really quickly. So we get phone calls daily saying, this has happened, can you help? And that's fine. I mean, most of our work comes from people approaching us to fix problems, and they just become a long-term customer. I'd say our work is quite seasonal. So at the moment in the winter, we're spending a lot of our time in the warehouse and in the office. We're dealing with the online orders, we're designing new shops, we're designing new merchandise, getting deals done, buying stock, preparing for next year. So it's not very rock and roll, but all this kind of stuff means that if we do it properly, proper preparation prevents a poor performance, the summer will be great fun. And then spring to autumn, we're out and about, we're at locations, we're at racetracks, we're at concert venues, we're in fields, stadiums, wherever we need to be to do what we have to do. And this means being away, maybe for a day or several days. There's lots of travel. The hours can be long. So if you want a nice steady job, which does 9 till 5 and Monday to Friday, then event work can be tricky with that. It depends which side of it you go. And because we're a small team, we all chip in. My job is I'm the MD, so it's my job to find the business and pay the bills and look after everything. But also I'll pick orders, clean the toilets, drive 600 miles to an event, whatever's needed really. And then my colleague is the designer, so she designs everything and she organises logistics. But also, you know, if I need her to, you know, crack on and do some shipping, we will. And then the team who ship, when it's quiet, we'll get them up to an event, be involved. And I think that's really important because with a small team, you have to be adaptable. And the majority of people who work in the event sector are freelance. And there's not that many companies who employ staff. It's mainly freelancers. On the first slide, we said it's 100 freelancers we work with. And that's about right, really. And that's all across Europe. But those freelancers will work for 40 or 50 different businesses, depending upon what's going on. So the work can be quite fragmented, but it can be really busy as well. So you just have to get on. One of the other presentations, the aviation company, the chap said, we say yes and work it out later. Essentially, that is the event sector as well, because you want to do a great event and you want to do it to the best of your ability and to try and turn the customer's ideas into reality. And if you just say no at the start, then the problem is that you restrict creativity. And that's one of the key things that we never want to do, is restrict creativity and restrict ideas. You develop the idea and then work out how to do it, and then you can tweak it if needs be. Next slide, please. So if I'd summarize this, I'd say the skills that you really need in the events sector is you need to be willing to learn, and you need to be able to communicate, because if you can't get your message across, the rest of the team who you might have only met that day cannot support you. You do need a level of numeracy to some extent, mainly things like measuring and doing maths and paying bills. Very much a problem solver. So if you're quite a logical person, problem solving in the event sector is very handy. And I'd say resilience is quite important as well. Many times things will go wrong and you just have to get up and crack on and work out a way around it. And you might be knee deep in mud and it's freezing cold and it's chucking it down, and you just dropped your only sandwich you're going to eat for the day in the mud, and you're just fed up, but you just need to crack on. But that's just the way it is, because sometimes you might be in beautiful sunshine, everything's going fine, and lots of people are saying how great you are. It's just that balance. A bit of IT is needed, because you always need a bit of a spreadsheet to help plan stuff. And that kind of goes without saying, that you need to be organized, because you will be planning. We spend a quarter of the year planning and then 3/4 of the year doing. And sometimes it can be quite hard to do things if you haven't planned properly. But also it can be quite tricky to spend a quarter of the year planning without seeing an outcome. And it's just remembering that there is an outcome. So if you want to get into events, because the majority of the sector are freelance, looking for roles and career paths, there isn't necessarily a structured route to it unless you work with large organizations. But large organizations want to take on people who have done stuff. So to get into it, I'd just say volunteer. Find things local to you, which you think, oh, that's quite interesting, and offer your services, even if it's just providing car parking, because if you're there and around and something needs doing and you can do it, they'll just say yes, because people on the ground are so important. And that's how you build your relationships, because that person running the car park might be actually doing something different at the next event, such as building the stage or designing artwork, because multi-skilling is really important as well. And don't be afraid to ask questions, because the one thing that we really struggle with in events is people assuming. And if you assume, it can be a domino effect of wrong. So always ask questions, even if it's not relevant to the event, just so you're understanding where things are. And being positive, that's really important as well. Things can go wrong and things do change. So it's just keep smiling and going, okay, we'll do it like this then. And if you decide actually you think this is the right thing for you and you've had a go at a few things, why not try something for yourself? And if it goes wrong, doesn't matter, you've learnt, get up and try again. Some of the first things I did was putting on small gigs in Cambridge, and the first few lost money, but I carried on, and then they started to break even and they started to make a bit of money. And then from there, I started building contacts in festivals, and then they asked me to be involved in those festivals, which led into programming, and it went from there, because people look for people who've got the right attitude. And that's really important, especially when you're self-employed, because you turn up at an event or you work with a project and you're expected to just get on and deliver what you need to do. So that self-motivation, that positivity, that attitude will help you get going. And then also multi-skilling, that's really important as well. So if you're a very creative person, but also you're a qualified first aider, that can help as well, because you can work on welfare points. If actually you have the ability to do a bit of carpentry, to do set building, that can really complement your design work, because then you can understand how you're going to build the set, not just do the artwork for the set and things like that. Next slide, please. And that's it. And I'm more than happy for anyone who's looking at this to drop me an email to say hello, and this is who you are. And if you want to have a chat, I'm more than welcome to have a chat. No problem.
Phil, that was absolutely brilliant. Thank you so much. That I can't believe that sort of 4 or 5 of you do that many things. Talk about having like a broad
It's a tight
footprint.
team. I mean, next year at the moment, we're looking at doing 33 motorsport events across Europe, 4 festivals and about 25 tours, and about 50,000 online orders across across
Wow.
35 shops. And there's only 4 of us. But the freelancers are important because
Yeah.
you can't be everywhere to everyone. We've got some events next year where I'm meant to be in Kent and Denmark and Poland all on the same weekend. And obviously that's not possible. So that's why you have to build a team around you that you can trust. And that's where the attitude comes in, because if you can find core people who can deliver for you, you'll always come back to them. And that's where you get your work. I mean, I started off as self-employed, and then it got to a point where we had so much work, I had to bring somebody on to work with me full time. And that's how it evolved into a business.
Right. Oh, that's really interesting because I was sort of, you obviously touched on your journey a bit with what you've done. I just wondered about how you sort of got started in such a sort of diverse, in such a diverse industry.
Of course. Well, so the really short version is that I grew up in a small town where nothing really happened. So I went to uni because I didn't really know what else to do. I did an IT degree. I didn't really like it, so I started doing other stuff, including student radio, which got me involved in music. And then I managed to get a part-time job working for Sony whilst I was studying, and it was my job to promote Sony music to the TV, radio, and press across the east of England. And I got paid £100 a month for that, plus expenses. So it was almost like a volunteer/work experience role for 2 years. But through that, I met different people, and I also saw different roles behind the scenes about music, marketing, promo, touring, and events. But when I left uni, I realised that I didn't want to stack cheese at Marks and Spencer all my life, so I needed to work out how to make some cash.
Yeah.
So I thought, well, I like music, I like gigs, I've seen some gigs, I'll put on some gigs and see what happens, because I knew some local musicians from doing the radio stuff. I put the two together and we created an acoustic night where everyone sat on the floor, rugs and cushions, and we had a host and a smoking jacket. And we thought, well, let's create this into a kind of like an acoustic show. And we did that. And in the end, we did 250 of them over 10 years. And that evolved into a festival stage at the Secret Garden Party, a radio show on 2 radio stations, 2 compilation CDs, an iTunes single of the week. And then people asking us if we can help out with festivals and programming and running stages. And, oh, because you do this, you know who prints T-shirts? Yeah, we can do that. Which was code for no, I don't, but I'll work it out.
But I will find out.
And that's fine. But the aviation chap earlier, he was saying, we say yes and work it out later. Essentially, I think that's the majority of work, and I don't think you can deny, Ruth, that even in the public sector, people say yes and work it out later.
Oh yeah, completely. I think that sort of like problem solving or solution finding, whichever way you want to look at it, is an aspect of almost everybody's job, isn't it? I think you're absolutely spot on, Phil.
That comes with practice, though, doesn't it? Because
Yeah.
in a way, there's an element of confidence that's needed, and that can be really hard to get that confidence up. And I feel like when I was growing up, I didn't really have that confidence to try stuff because I didn't know, and I was almost forced into doing things because it was either I stick at my degree, which I hated, or I found a new route. And maybe, in a way, people who maybe are watching this will not feel like they're confident to give it a go now, but in a few months, their hands might be forced, which turns them into doing something, even if they don't feel comfortable with it.
And I think your approach of like, if it goes wrong, learn from it and try again. I think that's so, that's so valuable sort of in terms of careers. You mentioned that you've obviously got sort of like people doing designing as well as everything else. What sort of kind of design skills do those people have? I'm not too sort of familiar with the kind of systems and things that they might need. I was sort of interested in their kind of hard skills that they might have as well as sort of the
Yeah, of
soft
course.
skills you've listed.
So our designer, she has a degree in photography. So her background was in using things like Illustrator and InDesign, which are
Right.
Adobe products, to work on her photos. But because she understood visuals and presentation, she then started to take those skills and apply them to merchandise. And then we supported her with a little bit of training, and then she managed to then develop her skills into designing. And I guess one of the key things I think is important, and not all companies would agree, is that I'd love to send designers to events, because if you said to somebody, can you design this for this tour, such as a t-shirt, how would you know what people want to wear unless you've been to the event and see what other people are wearing at the moment?
Oh,
And you
brilliant. So for inspiration.
but you understand the culture as well. So in our first year, I took a designer we had at the time, Tom, to Prague for the Speedway, because we worked on the Speedway motorbikes. And I said, look, come with me for the weekend. All I want you to do is just watch people, look at what they're wearing, how they interact, the type of things they do, flags, t-shirts. And that helped him develop. And I think that's really important as well, because if you almost isolate a role, then you don't get the best out of somebody. But also you also identify skills which they can use elsewhere as well. So our designer also does her operations because she's very organised. So to support her, we put her on a H&D in business
Oh, brilliant.
operations. She had no business knowledge. So you can teach the hard skills if the attitude is right and you put them in an environment where they feel they can give it a go.
Yeah.
And the way I see it is that because there's a team of 4 of us, we just have to crack on. We're all on par in terms of responsibility. It's my job to find the work, pay the bills, and do the admin and keep the wolves at the door. And then it's Ellen's job to do all the design and make things happen. And then it's Alison's job to make sure the stuff gets out the door for the e-commerce and the fulfillment.
Wow.
But we all do a bit of everything, and I think that's important because if you don't understand the whole process, um, then you might take for granted what you're doing and the importance of what you do.
Yeah, I can really see, like, especially in what you're doing, like how knowing sort of end to end how things work, that must be really important.
And you should apply the skills for whatever size event it is. We go to, how can I explain this? So we do small concerts
Mhm.
where like 400 people might turn up. And the merchandise you sell there is equally as important as when we go to Poland and we have 52,000 people watching Speedway because
Wow.
they're still fans who are
Yeah.
passionate about what they've come to see, and they still should have the same standard of experience regardless of the volume or location.
Yeah.
And I think
And I'm
that's
sure that what makes your
recognized.
products very popular with people, isn't it? If people who are having those things and wanting those services feel that they're getting, whether or not they're a household name or whether or not they're not, is equally important. Just to sort of end, Phil, what if you could go back and speak to your younger self about careers? We've been asking everybody this. Um, what do you think that what advice would you give yourself?
Teach yourself foreign language and get some design skills
Yeah.
because I do a lot of travel. I mean, the majority of it is Europe. There's some in Asia as well. I feel very lucky that the most of the Western world that we visit speaks English, and I'd say that the English that they speak is equal to or better than people I speak to here, who
Yeah.
are naturally
Quite humbling, isn't it?
fluent in English. And it is very humbling because they have this ability to communicate with you, and it's quite embarrassing that I go to Poland and my Polish is very basic. I can go to Germany, my German's not very good. I can't speak Swedish. When I go to Korea, no idea, but they can. On reflection, I wish that I could speak a foreign language, so when I go to these countries, I had the ability to communicate in their language and feel like I am um, doing my best for them
Yeah.
rather than doing it for me, because I think there's something endearing about that.
Yeah.
Um, and also, it teaches your brain to learn in a different way, learning a language. So I do that. I'd also learn some design skills because I'm very good at coming up with an idea and verbalizing it and imagining it in my head, but I cannot apply it to paper, which is why I have designers who can do that
Yeah.
for that interpretation. That's what I do.
Oh, wow,
And
that is
I'd say to myself,
absolutely brilliant.
I'd also say to myself, it'll be all right. Just keep trying stuff because you can get to points where you think, oh, this is awful. I don't know what I'm going to do. But I didn't know what I was going to do because I wasn't trying. But when I started trying, then the journey started. And I think half the battle is getting going, really.
Oh, Phil, that's fantastic advice. Thank you so much for your time. It's been absolutely brilliant to speak to you today. It's
No
just
problem.
been great. Really appreciate it.